Welcome, everybody, you amazing audience. I love you. Welcome to This Week in Apple. It is Andrew here, and I'm going to be covering all the news that you need to know from the preceding week in the world of Apple. And there's a lot of stuff to talk about, as always. And our biggest story this week to break down is the Epic versus Apple trial. It kicked off on Monday, and each day has brought new surprises in forms of testimony and documents, and there's just a lot of little tidbits that I find very interesting. First up, Tim Sweeney himself, CEO of Epic, said that he would have taken a sweetheart deal with Apple should it have been offered, which is a little bit hypocritical because he is doing this lawsuit basically saying he is speaking for all developers, yet he's saying he would have left all other devs out in the cold had Apple done something special just with them. So a little bit of a say this, do this kind of thing going on there. We also saw that Phil Schiller actually tossed around reducing App Store royalty fees back in 2011, talking about as the App Store approached about 1 billion users, would Apple pull back that 30% revenue share, or would it kind of stay where it is? And Phil Schiller again talked about that back in 2011. Of course, Apple slowly over time did make some changes, reducing subscription cost if you have subscribers for more than a year, and a few other changes like that. So Apple did eventually drop some costs down. There's also the small business program that will reduce those App Store fees for developers or companies making less than $1 million in sales. So Apple has done stuff over time, but it was thrown out as early as 2011, about 10 years ago. Other stuff we learned, Apple was conflicted about whether to offer ads inside of the App Store before they launched it. Turns out Apple did go with adding ads to the App Store, and in fact this week they added a new slot to the App Store for ads just on that home search screen. During the lawsuit, Apple really drove home the point that competitors, Sony, Microsoft, other gaming platforms, do not allow the cross transactions with different payment systems. You have to go through their systems, and you can't just go directly through Epic. There's no other payment processing. It is just through their game systems. So Apple's calling out Epic for being a little bit hypocritical there in saying that Apple should do this, but they have other competitors, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, that all require you going through their own payment systems and platforms. Epic also noted that they themselves have their own developer agreement with their users that says if you cheat, if you break the rules, then you're getting banned, which is effectively what Apple has for the App Store. To its developers, if you break our rules, then you get banned. That's generally how it works, and Apple got Epic to admit on stand that they have those same rules in place for their own users and players. Leaked documents reveal how Apple was scrambling internally trying to prevent Netflix from pulling its own in-app purchase option. Eventually, Apple or Netflix did pull the in-app purchase option, requiring you to sign up through Netflix's website instead of using that in-app purchase. It did mean that users had to go outside of the app and venture online before they could pick up a subscription, and that way Apple didn't get a cut of those subscribers. Now, for Fortnite fans, there is one big piece of positive news that has come out this week, and that is Fortnite looks to be returning to iOS later this year as part of GeForce Now. By going through GeForce Now, it is able to be played on iPhone or iPad using touch controls as well as with a gaming controller. There are a lot of people out there that are going to be very excited, and right now it looks like they are targeting that October date, but it is not set in stone quite yet. If you're interested in anything else we talked about on the Epic trial, check out the links down below. I've got a lot of stuff covered, stuff I didn't go into a lot of detail on because there's just so much information in there. But if you're curious at all about what's kind of being shared and talked about, check out the links down below or in the linked article. Just a lot more for you guys to read if you're curious at all. But moving on, outside of the Epic trial this week, the thing we talked about probably most on AppleInsider was AirTag. AirTags. I've already done several videos on AirTag. A couple went live this week. I got another one dropping on Monday for you guys on using AirTag with your car. But if you're looking for any tips or anything like that, check out AppleInsider. William Gallagher also wrote a great review of AirTag. So if you were a little bit on the fence, you weren't sure whether you should pick one up or not, go check out his review. It might help you a little bit kind of decide whether it makes sense to get one for yourself or maybe a 4-pack for yourself. There was also a new article out by Washington Post. An editor or writer at Washington Post had a colleague track him using AirTags and found it was far too easy. It doesn't alert you until 3 days after the fact and only when you return home. So if it's a case of a abuser, that 3-day time period is getting reset every day, so they'd be tracked without their notice there. And the fact that he was able to track for 3 days, seeing where he was going outside of his house, even as he was biking down the road every few minutes, it was updating his location. So a little bit scary how easy it was to track people using AirTag, and Washington Post said Apple needed to do a little bit more to increase the privacy features of its tracker. And finally, we also saw that a debug mode was found in the Find My app that gave you a lot of random information. Not anything particularly useful, but kind of cool to see this debug information regarding AirTag in the Find My app. Now it's time for the grab bag portion of the show. Bunch of random news stories that are not related to anything else in particular. For video people, I did a video earlier this week when I went hands-on with this, which is an iPad mini 6 dummy unit. And I talk about the fact that it really doesn't change that much. I rounded up the different rumors that we were seeing about the different size display, other design changes that we may or could see on Apple's miniature-sized tablet, and if this guy comes to be, how I'm pretty disappointed in that. But if you're interested in the iPad mini, check out that video. In terms of other news to talk about, we saw a dummy unit of iPhone 13. A dummy unit of iPhone 13 was revealed, and it shows a smaller notch and a replaced speaker module there at the top. In the world of Apple accessories, Target is buying Sanho Corporation. Sanho owns or is the parent company of the brand Hyper that you may be familiar with. They created a MagSafe battery pack for the iPhone, and they have a bunch of other docks, USB accessories, batteries, tons of stuff. I've been using Hyper since my early days of college, maybe before that even, and I've always been a huge fan. So interesting that Target is buying Sanho or Hyper to expand their Mac accessory footprint. There was a new patent filed that looks to be related to Apple Glass, should that product ever come to market, and about how Apple could be adjusting the brightness of Apple Glass automatically, which would make them a lot more comfortable to wear, especially as you take them off and adjusting from the brightness of your glasses to the room that you're in. We still don't know that much about Apple Glass in terms of timeline, but it definitely seems like something Apple has been working on. For HomePod users, if you're looking for better audio, Deezer now is using the HomePod API to be the native default music player on HomePod. So you can just ask Siri on your HomePod to play music, and it'll play through Deezer. And what's really nice is there's actually like lossless, like hi-fi versions of the audio that can be streamed directly through HomePod or HomePod Mini. So if that interests you at all, you're a Deezer fan, anything like that, go download that app and you can now use it natively on your HomePod without having to worry about AirPlay. Finally, rounding out this week's worth of news, Peloton is issuing a voluntary recall of its Tread Plus treadmill. After there's been injuries and even one death, they're issuing a voluntary recall of these devices to prevent anything else from happening in the future. Whether they redesign them or what their future plans hold, I'm not sure, but they are issuing that voluntary recall. So if you have a Tread Plus in your home, you've got maybe younger kids around or even pets, and you're at all worried, but definitely check into that. It is a voluntary recall of all of Peloton's treadmills. So that pretty much covers it for the week. Next week we are off. I am traveling. I'm excited to come back from Iceland with a bunch of awesome, amazing photos to show you guys. We're going to be testing out some cool gear. I'm going with a full set of Moment gear to film some amazing stuff out there. So if you're interested in photography at all, want to see Iceland right now, I have a lot of stuff to show you next week when I get back. So stay tuned. Next week we're going to be off, but the weekend after that, the week after that, I will be here bringing you all the news, maybe an extra long episode covering everything that I missed while I was gone. But please stay tuned. We will be back very, very soon.